Hi, and welcome to another episode of Ask Pedro. I'm Pedro, this is Dan, and we're with Leeson Group. And today, we're going to be answering one of the most prominent questions in the solar industry. And that is, what's the difference between a microinverter and a normal string inverter? So without further ado, let's get into it. So, Dan here is our senior electrical engineer at Leeson, and he's going to help us get into detail about this question. So first off, this here is an SMA string inverter. So this actually bolts up right to the wall of the house, and all of the panels on the roof connect down to this inverter right here.
Over here, I've got an N-phase microinverter. Now, main difference between this and the string inverter there is you'll actually have one of these connected to each panel on your roof.
Cool. So now that we've got into the physical differences between the two, then let's understand, why would a homeowner or a business owner choose a microinverter system over a string inverter?
One of the main reasons people choose something like this is just for their monitoring ability. So you can actually look at individual panels and see how they're performing. This will help you identify any issues you might be having. It will help with warranty claims should one arise. String inverter doesn't really have that sort of ability. You can only look at how much your overall array is producing. Looking at how each module is performing and the ones around it can really help identify if there's a weak spot in the system.
And see, this is very important for clients that really want to get into the nitty-gritty of their system. An example of that is we actually installed a microinverter system at the Growling Frog Golf Course for the City of Whittlesea Council. And they actually have a plant room on the roof which was causing shading and would hit some of the panels. So they wanted to see exactly how the different panels were performing to see how the shading was affecting the system.
Yeah, just to add to that, so with a microinverter system, you're going to be able to mitigate the losses caused due to shading. So with a string inverter system, if you shade one module in that array, you can end up with losses across the whole array. When we've got a microinverter system, if you shade that one module, its performance will be reduced, but the modules around it will also perform at 100% as long as they're all in full sunlight.
Yeah, and that's especially important here where, for example, we're in Heidelberg West, but we have a really big customer base in Eltham. And as you might know, Eltham is famous for their trees, which does cause a lot of shading issues for homeowners. So one of the main things we recommend for homeowners that experience severe shading at multiple times of the day is to go with a microinverter system.
Fault finding is another reason why people choose a microinverter system. It makes it easier to find issues within the system. So you could end up with a fault with a module, with your string inverter, with cabling. So when you've got that string system, it can be hard to find. With a microinverter system, it's much easier to pinpoint and just replace that one, failure point in that system, whether it be the micro itself, the module, or something else along the line.
And this is especially important consideration when clients may see or they may think that a fault will come up in the future, but they don't want to be bothered with replacing or calling us out every time that fault comes up. With a microinverter system, if one module or one panel or one microinverter is faulty, the rest of the system still works completely fine. Whereas with a string inverter, one fault could mean that your whole system is down. So we looked at the positives of the microinverters over a string inverter. So let's look on the flip side of that. What are the negatives, or what are some reasons that homeowners or business owners would choose a string inverter over the microinverters?
Look, I think the main one that most people are going to look at is cost. It does get quite costly to put a lot of microinverters on a roof compared to a string inverter.
So to give you an idea, on average, a microinverter system compared to a string inverter is going to end up costing around $150 to $200 extra per panel. So it can add up when you're looking at a bigger system.
The next reason where you might go for a string inverter system over a microinverter system is the microinverter system is going to introduce a lot more points of failure. So in the instance that your string inverter dies, it's the one inverter, we're on the wall, we replace and we put the new one on. Microinverter system, you might have one microinverter die in 3 years and then another one die in 4, another one in 5. You might be back constantly for replacements should it be installed poorly or something like that. You've also got the issue of having to get up onto the roof for servicing. Sometimes that's not possible. On big sites, we use scissors to access the roof. If we don't have a scissor lift later, we'll have to bring in a scissor just to replace a single micro when we could have had a string inverter at ground level easily swapped off the wall.
So in conclusion, string inverters and microinverters both have their strengths and weaknesses. If you're on a tight budget, or if roof access is going to be an issue later down the track, we definitely recommend going with a string inverter.
If you've got shading issues or you want complete monitoring and control, we definitely recommend an N-phase microinverter system for you.
So, those are the main differences between string inverters and microinverters. If you want to see an in-depth video on microinverters or an in-depth video on which is the best inverter, click here on the screen and we'll take you there.
Maybe there. Okay.
Maybe there. But apart from that, thank you guys so much for watching and we'll see you next time.
Have a good one.